Well, welcome Ravensdale Bible Academy. Today's course overview is a book review of the book, the classic from George Orwell called 1984. And so as you can well imagine, I'm a huge fan of George Orwell. We also have a course from another one of his books called Animal Farm. Both of these books have a lot to do with the study of socialism and capitalism. And so these are two really good while they're big topics and heavy topics, they're good topics for the young mind and for young students to take in, to absorb, and to start learning. Why? Well, because one of the key battles of our time is the battle between the ideology and the belief system of capitalism versus socialism. Now, during the 20th century, during the 1900s, we fought bloody battles against the communists. 20 million people died fighting that battle against communism, totalitarianism, fascism, socialism. And so a lot of people would argue, well, socialism and capitalism, are not the same thing. I would beg to differ. The United Soviet Socialist Republic, that was Russia. They were communist. The Nazi Party was the Socialist Workers' Party. Okay, so that was totalitarianism. And so we see in China right now that the Chinese are totalitarian fascists. They're communists. They're doing this through a socialist process. So why does the idea of utopian socialism always go bad? The irony of this too is, when you look at dystopians, which 1984 is a dystopia, it's kind of a reverse or an anti-utopia. But honestly, that's what utopia is. If you read the book Utopia, at the end of the day, it doesn't work either. Why? Well, the only way to force your way to socialism, the only way to make socialism happen at the end of the day is you're still going to have a hierarchy of a very small percentage of people, and then you're going to have the majority of the people that don't have. Unlike capitalism, where you have a massive amount of middle class, in socialism you don't. You have either the super rich and wealthy, or everybody else is equal, but they have equally nothing. And so capitalism gives the opportunity for everybody to crawl up from the lowest parts and to find their way up. And we've seen this displayed so many times in America, especially by people who move from other countries, who come here with nothing and climb up the corporate ladder, as it were. In the book 1984, we really see these prophetic words of warning from George Orwell, and his prediction is this would happen by 1984. He was, a few years off, but here we are, and we want to study this, we want to study history. Why? So that we don't repeat it. Why would we want to go backwards to communism and socialism? It doesn't make any sense. Every single country that's tried this, Venezuela, Cuba, they failed. And so in the book 1984, it really draws out some frightening things that we see happening today on the forefront. Things like Big Brother, right? Tracking you and following you. And we see how big tech is able to do that. The ever watchful eye in 1984, where basically wherever you go, there's some camera watching you. Well, we have more and more cameras all over every street and in all the buildings now. It's crazy. They have a concept called Newspeak, where you have to be retrained to talk differently. So words are banned, phrases are banned. We're seeing this right now, where words and phrases are being banned. There's the thought police. You can't even think things. We're seeing that now, where there's a demand that you use certain gender pronouns, or you call people by, so you can't even think on your own. You have to think the way other people think, and if you don't think that way, then you're shamed. Totalitarian government is always the form of the socialist agenda. We see this through 1984 again, where, there's shutdowns, the government totally controls, manipulates people, tells them where they can go, when they can go, how they can dress, right? Always got to have passports and cards and that kind of thing. Sound familiar? They use revisionist history throughout 1984. They actually change history. Well, that's what we're seeing right now, the battle between 1619 Project and 1776. When was America really founded, and was it founded on racism or not? Propaganda, we see the use of propaganda throughout 1984. That's what we're seeing today through big tech, through our news media, just propaganda all over the place. Again, things like, shadow banning, censorship, toxic masculinity, identity politics, indoctrination, even, 2 + 2 = 5. Wow, who would have ever thought that something so absurd would actually turn into a reality? So 1984 is, again, a masterpiece of a book, so well written by George Orwell. There's some adult themes throughout the book that are concerning, and so I want to make that known as well. But as far as a student really critically understanding what's happening around us right now, why it's happening and why it's dangerous and where it leads to, well, 1984 is a phenomenal book review.